Shabbat Shalom. In this week's Parasha Tetzaveh, we have some additional commandments related to the Mishkan, preparing the Shem and Mishcha, and the priestly garments. And then we have the ceremonies accompanying the consecration of the Mishkan. And at the end of this, and the korbanot they were offered, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, "V'noadati shama levnei Yisrael," talking about the purpose, basically, of one of the purposes of the Mishkan. "V'noadati shama levnei Yisrael," I'll make myself known there to the children of Israel. "V'nikdash b'chvodi," and the Mishkan will be nikdash, will become kadosh, will become holy by the means of my kavod, my glory. Kavod, the kavod, what's generally called in English a divine glory, is a very, very loaded concept, and many, many people have written about, what it means. I would say basically it's a visual perception of the deity. People, in English we say seeing is believing, and a lot of people have trouble truly believing things that they only can, comprehend intellectually. They can't see, and so we have visual manifestations at Har Sinai, the Aish, the Brakim, and elsewhere as well. Some people, Sajid Gaon and others, have said that the kavod is some sort of specially created aura, some light, some brilliance that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes on the spot to confirm his revelation to a prophet or something of the sort. Others say that it's visual, but it's not necessarily a special creation. Hashemayim is supreme kavod el. The heavens, the beauty of the heavens, the beauty of the cosmos is a visual manifestation, a visual proof, if you want, for the existence of God. The Ramban has, as usual, some very deep and well thought out and complex ideas on this. The Ramban says that the kavod, God's kavod, the so-called divine glory, that was visually manifested, everyone, all the 600,000 plus Jews could see with their eyes at Har Sinai, then was transferred to the Mishkan, but it was nistar, it was hidden. The divine glory was hidden within the anan, within the cloud, which covered the Mishkan. It was sort of a box within a box. So the kavod was in the Mishkan. It was transferred to the Mishkan, but it became invisible. Now, it's interesting. Now, in the previous video, I spoke about the connection between the Mishkan and our shuls, and the discussion that some people have brought up as to whether Vasuli Mikdash V'Shachanti B'Tochan applies to any Beit Knesset, any shul as well. That the mitzvah taseh Vasuli Mikdash applies to any shul. Interesting question now is, does this apply also as well to the kavod, the divine, to kavod, the kedusha shel kavod, the nikdashti v'nikdash b'chodi? Well, we'll see that. We'll talk about that in the next segment. Now, in trying to decide or to see whether this notion of kavod, according to the Ramban, can apply to a shul as well, I want to look at something that's said in his name by the Ran. I think it was a student, Nissen Garondi from Harona, who quotes the Ramban. I don't think that there's actually in any of the Ramban's works. It was something apparently that Rabbeinu Nissan heard from him, and the Ramban, as keeps his halacha and his machshava and Kabbalah separate, with the one exception, the famous remark he made with regard to the difference between a neder and shvua, which he connects to his ideas of Kabbalah. They're two different fields, and he doesn't say anything here that indicates that there are theological or philosophical implications, but I think there are, and even the language he uses, that the sugya in Masechet Megillah has to do with selling a shul, a problem that actually comes up often enough in the U.S. And I think it just was a story that made the headlines all over recently about being forced to, the Jews in Houston being forced to raise their shul. I don't know because of the damage done to it by the hurricane. I don't know whether they're actually selling the land or whatever, but it's a problem that comes up. Can you sell a shul and have the money go to become chulin? And it's a complicated sugya. And the Ramban says basically that under the certain circumstances, that particularly some sort of democratic thing, that it's not just the Sheva Tuvei Ha'ir, the sort of the 7 elders or the shul committee or the communal committee, but it has to be done by Ma'amad and She'ir. The committee can decide, to sell the shul, but it has to be done in front of the entire community, where apparently, if the people want to protest, then they can. Then they can sell the shul, and it's completely chulin. It loses its kedusha completely. The Ramban says that in that case, that at least in this regard, kedushat Beit HaKnesset is the kedusha of tashmishay mitzvah. It's a tashmishay mitzvah like tzitzit or sukkah or lulav, where according to the halacha, once you've finished the mitzvah has been performed, you can, according to the strict interpretation of the law, simply throw it out. Most of us don't do that. We have a sort of emotional feeling that we can't just toss it in the wastebasket. But according to the halacha, there's no more kedusha after and they can be disposed of. And in discussing this, at least as he's cited by the Ran, the Ramban says, "Asuo toket tashmishe mitzvah kasukav lulav shenizrakim lachar mitzvatan." They made the shul like tashmishe mitzvah, like sukkah lulav, that can be thrown out after the mitzvah has been completed. Uvizman mitzvah yeshbem kedusha shel kavod. You use that word, kedusha shel kavod. In other words, while the mitzvah is while they're functioning for the purpose of the mitzvah, like a shul being functioning as a place of prayer, they have a kedusha of kavod. Now he's not saying this is the kavod Hashem that's actually dwelling or inhering in the shul. It could just be the kind of respect that we have for things that are connected to the mitzvot. But it's interesting that he uses that term. So it's possible that the kedusha could be something that inheres only temporarily in the shul, and that there's a kavod that inheres temporarily in the shul. Of course, there are many shuls around the world, and once the community has almost unanimously, not just the leaders of the community, but all the members of the community have decided that they don't want this shul to be this building and this plot of land and the building materials that went to the shul to be used as for a shul. Then it loses its kedusha completely, and it becomes completely chulin. Finally, it's interesting to see that this idea of a temporary kedusha is really something that's not that strange. Even Har Sinai, where Kavod Hashem Shechan that God's glory was somehow inhering in the mountain, and V'Gbalt at the Hor, there was V'Gbalt at the Hor. Moshe had to rope off the Har Sinai, and anyone who came too close was a penalty of death. But as we've all know, and we're all taught even in high school that it was it's Kedusha's money after Har Sinai, after the Matan Torah. Har Sinai has no Kedusha whatsoever, and anyone can camp out there or go mountain climbing. It's no Kedusha whatsoever, though. At one point, it was the place where the Kavod Hashem inhered. And so it could similarly be the case that with God, with every shul, that while it's functioning as a shul, that the community has decided that to make it as a shul, and even if Vasuli Mikdash is taken as their mitzvah, they can actually forcefully raise money from the community to build the shul. But when the community decides that it's no longer interested in having a shul, it loses its kedusha, as opposed to Beit Hamikdash. The Beit Hamikdash, the kedusha and the kedusha of Har Bayit is permanent, but don't forget that it preceded the building of the Beit Hamikdash. Whatever special qualities or holiness, or whatever you want to call it, appertain to Har Bayit were there even from the beginning, from creation. If according to those who will say that Misham Evan Shatia Misham Ushtat Kol Ha'olam. So the permanence of the kedusha of Har Bayit is not a direct consequence of the Kavod Hashem being in the Beit Hamikdash while the Beit Hamikdash stood. So we have here these two instances of temporary kedusha and permanent kedusha related to Beit Hamikdash, the Mishkan, and the Shul, but in different ways. So I don't know if the Ramban would agree with my analysis and trying to squeeze a little bit more out of his about what he said on this issue of selling the Shul, but I think it's an interesting point to ponder, and the Ramban is such a deep and thinker that there these different threads do seem to connect. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.